Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive right into something pretty cool, the real costs of starting a shellfish farm. We're breaking down all the numbers to help you figure out how to turn that dream into a real business.
I mean, who hasn't dreamed of farming the sea, right? It sounds amazing, waking up with the tide, working out on the water, harvesting fresh oysters or clams. But before we can even get our hands wet, we got to talk about the big one, the money. It's the thing that can make or break this whole dream. So let's get real. What's it actually going to cost you to get started?
All right, so here's the game plan. We're going to start with the basics, licenses and location. Then we'll get into the fun stuff, building the actual farm. After that, we'll talk about the day-to-day costs, how to get your harvest to market, and finally, we'll pull it all together and look at the bottom line.
Okay, first things first. And I mean, this is really the first thing. Before you even think about buying a single cage or a tiny little baby oyster, you've got to lock down your location and get all that paperwork sorted. This is the foundation, You just can't skip this part.
So these are your first big hurdles. And yeah, they're all about paperwork and getting permission. You've got to lease your piece of the ocean, which could be a few $100 or a few $1,000s a year. Then you've got the permits. An aquaculture license can set you back anywhere from $500 to, get this, over $5,000. Seriously. Here's a little pro tip from the people who've done it. Start looking into your local and state rules super early. This stuff can take forever, and there are always hidden costs.
Okay, so you've jumped through all the legal hoops. Now it's time for the fun part, actually building the farm. This is where we start talking about the physical stuff, the gear that's going to be home for your shellfish.
Now look at this. What's wild here is just how much the costs can vary. This is where your business plan is everything. Are you a small 2-acre farm or a massive 20-acre operation? The difference is huge. A cage could be $20 or $200 a piece. And your boat? It could be a simple $1,000 skiff or a $10,000 plus workhorse. It really depends on your scale.
Right, and you can't have a farm without, well, the things you're farming. The shellfish seed, that's a huge upfront cost. And what you choose to grow makes a massive difference. Oysters, they're the premium option, and they can cost up to $1 for one single seed. On the other hand, clams and mussels are way more budget-friendly to start with. So yeah, this decision is a really big deal for your initial budget.
So you've got your permits, your gear, your seed. You're all set, right? Well, not so fast. The spending is far from over. Now we have to talk about the ongoing costs, the stuff you have to pay for just to keep the lights on, day in and day out.
Let's be real. Unless you're planning on being a one-person show, labor is going to be one of your biggest ongoing costs, and wages are a huge part of that. You might be paying $10 an hour for some entry-level help, or maybe $20 for someone with more experience. And if you get big enough, a full-time farm manager becomes a serious salaried expense.
And then there's all the other stuff, Gear breaks. Your boat's not going to run without fuel. And you absolutely 100% need insurance to protect your investment from a bad storm or something else totally unexpected. A huge mistake new farmers make is not budgeting for this stuff. Trust me, you'll want to have some cash set aside for when that engine suddenly dies.
All right, you did it. You've grown these amazing, beautiful shellfish. That's awesome. But the job's not over yet, not even close. Now you've got to figure out how to get them from your farm to your customers. And yep, that has its own price tag.
If you want to sell direct, you've got to look professional. That means a website, which could be $500 or $5,000. You're also going to need packaging, branding, all that good stuff. And here's a really important tip. Don't cheap out on your branding. Seriously, that's what makes you stand out. It's how you tell the world your product is premium and worth paying more for.
Okay, wow. We've talked permits, gear, seed, labor, marketing. It's a lot to think about. So now let's get to the bottom line. Let's pull back and see the big picture of where all that startup money is actually going.
This chart right here just lays it all out perfectly. Look at that. Almost half your budget, a whopping 45%, is probably going to be equipment. The shellfish seed itself is the next biggest piece of the pie at 20%. Then comes all that critical paperwork for permits and leases. It really shows you where your money is going to disappear in those first few months.
And this right here is probably the single most important thing to remember. It's not just about having the cash to get started. It's about having a rock-solid financial plan to get you through those tough first couple of years and to handle whatever surprises come your way. A detailed budget, it's not a nice-to-have. It's a must-have if you want to be around for the long haul.
So there you have it, a real honest look at the costs of starting a shellfish farm. Look, it's a big investment, no doubt about it. But if you've got the passion and you've got that solid business plan we've been talking about, the payoff can be absolutely incredible. So I guess the only question left to ask is, are you ready to build your farm?
Want to raise healthy, profitable shellfish without beginner mistakes? Get How to Raise Shellfish by Gerard, your step-by-step guide to successful shellfish farming. Link below.